Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a pivotal moment in history, the fall of the Roman Empire. But forget the simplistic image of barbarian hordes at the gates. The decline was a far more complex and fascinating process, a slow burn rather than a sudden collapse. We'll explore the intricate web of factors, from political instability and economic woes to social changes and external pressures, that led to the eventual fragmentation of this once mighty power. So, buckle up as we unravel the real story behind the fall of Rome. What really happened? For centuries, the name of Rome resonated with power, innovation, and unparalleled influence. From its humble beginnings as a small republic, it had grown into a colossal empire, its legions marching across vast territories, its laws shaping civilizations, and its culture leaving an indelible mark on the world. This was the era of Pax Romana, the Roman peace, a period of relative stability and prosperity that allowed for unprecedented advancements in various fields. Imagine a city teeming with life, a magnificent urban center adorned with grand monuments. The Colosseum, a testament to Roman engineering and entertainment, hosted spectacular gladiatorial contests and public spectacles. The Forum Romanum, the heart of Roman political and social life, bustled with senators debating, merchants trading, and citizens engaging in the daily rhythm of life. Aqueducts, marvels of hydraulic engineering, carried fresh water for miles, supplying public baths, fountains, and private residences, showcasing Rome's commitment to public health and comfort. Roman roads, a network of meticulously constructed pathways, crisscrossed the empire, facilitating trade, communication, and the swift movement of troops, effectively binding distant provinces together. Roman law, with its emphasis on justice, contracts, and property rights, provided a framework for a complex and diverse society. Its principles continue to influence legal systems around the world. Roman literature, philosophy, and art flourished, drawing inspiration from Greek traditions yet developing their own distinct character. Think of the epic poetry of Virgil, the philosophical insights of Seneca, and the intricate sculptures and mosaics that adorned Roman villas and public spaces. The Roman military machine was arguably the most formidable force of its time. Disciplined legions, expertly trained and equipped, secured the empire's borders, suppressed rebellions, and expanded Roman dominion. The legions were not just instruments of war, they also played a vital role in infrastructure development, building roads, bridges, and fortifications that further cemented Roman control and facilitated economic growth. The vastness of the Roman Empire brought immense wealth through trade and taxation. Resources flowed from every corner of its domain, fueling the grandeur of Rome and supporting a complex administrative apparatus. This interconnectedness, however, would also prove to be a vulnerability in the long run. Despite its seemingly invincible position, the seeds of the Roman Empire's decline were sown even during its period of glory. Several interconnected factors gradually eroded its foundations. Political instability, the transition from republic to empire, while initially bringing stability, also created new avenues for power struggles. The rise and fall of emperors, often through intrigue, assassination, and civil war, disrupted the smooth functioning of the state. The Praetorian Guard, meant to protect the emperor, frequently became kingmakers, wielding immense political influence. The very system of succession remained a persistent weakness, leading to periods of chaos and internal conflict that drained resources and diverted attention from external threats. Economic woes. The vast wealth of the empire masked underlying economic vulnerabilities. Reliance on slave labor stifled technological innovation and created a large class of unemployed citizens. Inflation became a recurring problem, often exacerbated by the debasement of coinage, reducing the precious metal content in coins. Maintaining a large army and funding lavish public works placed a significant strain on the imperial treasury. Trade imbalances and regional economic disparities further contributed to instability. Social decay. Some historians point to a gradual decline in civic virtue and public spirit among the Roman elite. A growing disparity between the wealthy and the poor led to social unrest and resentment. The allure of luxury and decadence may have diverted attention from the responsibilities of citizenship and governance. While difficult to quantify, this potential erosion of social cohesion could have weakened the empire's ability to respond effectively to its challenges. Barbarian pressures. The very success of the Roman Empire in establishing secure borders inadvertently created pressure on the tribes living beyond those frontiers. As these groups migrated and coalesced, they became increasingly formidable adversaries. The constant need to defend vast borders stretched the Roman military thin, particularly as internal conflicts diverted troops and resources. The Goths, Vandals, Huns, and other groups exerted increasing pressure, probing weaknesses in the Roman defences and eventually launching large-scale invasions. The sheer size and complexity, the sheer scale of the Roman Empire, while initially a source of strength, eventually became a significant administrative burden. Governing vast territories with diverse cultures and economies proved increasingly challenging. Communication was slow, and local officials often wielded considerable power, sometimes leading to corruption and inefficiency. The division of the empire into western and eastern halves in the late 4th century, intended to improve administration, ultimately exacerbated the divergence and weakened the Western Roman Empire. Environmental factors and disease. While often overlooked, environmental changes and widespread diseases may have also played a role. Periods of drought or changing climate patterns could have impacted agricultural productivity. Devastating plagues, such as the Antonine Plague and the Plague of Cyprian, significantly reduced the population, impacting the economy, the military, and the overall stability of the empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was not a singular event, but a protracted process, a culmination of internal weaknesses and external pressures. The glory of Rome, its remarkable achievements in law, engineering, culture, and military prowess, ultimately succumbed to a complex interplay of political instability, economic woes, social changes, barbarian invasions, and the sheer challenge of managing a vast and diverse empire. While the Western Roman Empire eventually fragmented, its legacy continued to shape the development of Western civilization, a testament to the enduring impact of one of history's greatest empires. Imagine trying to build a stable house on shifting sands. That's a pretty good analogy for the political landscape of the later Roman Empire. The relative stability of the early empire, with its mostly orderly succession, gave way to a chaotic free-for-all. The 3rd century CE is a prime example, often dubbed the crisis of the 3rd century. In a mere 50 years, the empire saw something like 20 to 30 different emperors. Many of these rulers met violent ends, assassinated by rivals, their own soldiers, or in civil wars. This rapid turnover wasn't just a historical curiosity, it had profound consequences. Constant power struggles diverted resources and attention away from crucial issues like defense and the economy. Provincial governors, seeing the instability at the top, might be tempted to pursue their own agendas, weakening central control. It became incredibly difficult to implement any long-term policies when the person in charge could be overthrown in a matter of months. Think about the logistics of running a vast empire like Rome. It required consistent leadership, clear lines of authority, and officials who could carry out directives effectively. When the imperial throne was essentially a revolving door, this administrative machinery struggled to function. Loyalty became fleeting, and the focus shifted from serving the empire to personal survival and enrichment. Hand in hand with political instability came the insidious creep of corruption at all levels of Roman society. While corruption wasn't entirely absent in the early empire, it seemed to metastasize in the later centuries. Bribery and extortion. Imagine a system where officials saw their positions not as a responsibility, but as an opportunity for personal gain. Bribery likely became commonplace, influencing everything from legal decisions to military appointments. Provincial governors, far from the watchful eyes of Rome, could extort local populations, lining their own pockets at the expense of the people they were supposed to govern. This bred resentment and further weakened the bonds between the provinces and the central authority. Patronage and favoritism. The Roman system had always involved patronage, where powerful individuals supported their clients in exchange for loyalty and service. However, in the later empire, this system seems to have become excessively skewed. Advancement often depended not on merit or ability, but on who you knew and who you bribed. This meant that incompetent or self-serving individuals could rise to positions of power, further eroding the effectiveness of the government and the military. Tax evasion and economic mismanagement. Running a large empire is expensive. It requires a robust system of taxation. However, widespread corruption likely hampered the collection of taxes. Wealthy individuals might have found ways to evade their obligations, placing a greater burden on the less affluent. Furthermore, corrupt officials might have embezzled funds or mismanaged state resources, further straining the imperial treasury. This economic instability made it harder to fund the military, infrastructure projects and social programs, all of which were vital for the empire's survival. The dangerous thing about political instability and corruption is that they often feed off each other, creating a vicious cycle. A weak and insecure emperor might be more reliant on corrupt officials who could offer support, often in exchange for further opportunities for enrichment. This, in turn, would further alienate the population and weaken the empire's foundations, potentially leading to more political upheaval. Imagine the average Roman citizen. They might have witnessed a rapid succession of emperors, each promising stability but delivering more of the same chaos. They might have experienced corrupt officials demanding bribes or seen their taxes squandered. Over time, this could lead to a sense of disillusionment and a decline in civic engagement. Why be loyal to an empire that seems incapable of governing itself effectively? It's also crucial to consider the impact of political instability and corruption on the Roman military, the very backbone of the empire. Constant civil wars weakened the legions, diverting manpower and resources. Ambitious generals, seeing the weakness at the center, might be tempted to seize power for themselves, further destabilizing the political landscape. Corruption could also affect the military directly, with officers accepting bribes, supplies being mismanaged, and morale suffering. A weakened and demoralized military was less able to defend the empire's vast borders against external threats. The narrative of Rome's decline often paints a dramatic picture of barbarian hordes crashing against its borders, an unstoppable tide that eventually overwhelmed the once mighty legions. While the reality is more nuanced, the pressure exerted by various barbarian groups, coupled with Rome's own internal military struggles, undeniably played a crucial role in its eventual fragmentation in the West. For centuries, Rome had skillfully managed its relationships with the peoples beyond its frontiers. Through a combination of diplomacy, trade, and military might, they maintained a fragile balance. However, by the 4th and 5th centuries CE, this equilibrium began to crumble under a confluence of factors. One significant catalyst was the westward migration of the Huns, a nomadic group originating from Central Asia. Their arrival in Eastern Europe in the late 4th century sent shockwaves through the existing barbarian tribes. Groups like the Visigoths, who had previously coexisted, albeit sometimes uneasily, with Rome, were now displaced and sought refuge within Roman territory. The Visigoths' entry into the Roman Empire was not a peaceful assimilation. Mistreatment by Roman officials and the strain on resources led to open rebellion. In 378 CE, the Battle of Adrianople proved to be a catastrophic blow to Roman military prestige. The Eastern Roman Emperor Valens was killed, and a large Roman army was decisively defeated by the Visigoths. This victory shattered the myth of Roman invincibility and demonstrated the growing strength and military capabilities of the barbarian groups. Following Adrianople, the Visigoths, under their dynamic leader Alaric, moved throughout the Balkans, eventually setting their sights on Italy itself. The unthinkable happened in 410 CE, when Alaric's forces sacked the city of Rome. While not the end of the Western Roman Empire, the sack sent a profound psychological shock throughout the Roman world. The Eternal City, the symbol of Roman power and glory, had fallen to barbarians. The Visigoths were not the only group exerting pressure. Throughout the 5th century, other barbarian confederations crossed the Roman frontiers. The Vandals, after migrating through Gaul and Spain, established a powerful kingdom in North Africa, a vital source of grain for Rome. Their control over this region not only deprived Rome of essential supplies, but also allowed them to launch naval raids against Italy, culminating in the sack of Rome in 455 CE, a more brutal and destructive event than the Visigothic sack. Further north, various Germanic tribes, including the Franks, Burgundians and Alemanni, established themselves within Roman Gaul. While initially sometimes invited as allies or foederati, groups granted land in exchange for military service, their growing autonomy and territorial ambitions gradually eroded Roman control. The Roman military, once a highly disciplined and effective fighting force, faced increasing challenges in this era. Constant warfare along multiple frontiers stretched its resources thin. Recruitment became more difficult, and the quality of soldiers sometimes declined as the empire relied more heavily on barbarian mercenaries. While these mercenaries often proved to be skilled fighters, their loyalty was often questionable, and their integration into the Roman military structure created further instability. Furthermore, internal political turmoil and economic woes hampered the empire's ability to effectively respond to these external threats. Civil wars drained resources and diverted attention from the frontiers. Inflation and economic instability weakened the state's capacity to fund and equip its armies. The military challenges were not solely about the number of invading barbarians. Roman military tactics and organization, while still formidable, sometimes struggled to adapt to the different fighting styles of their adversaries. The reliance on heavily armored infantry, while effective against other similarly equipped forces, could be less mobile and vulnerable against the swift cavalry tactics favored by some barbarian groups, like the Huns. The empire attempted various strategies to cope with these invasions. They employed diplomacy, offering land and subsidies to some groups in exchange for peace or military service. They also engaged in fierce military campaigns, sometimes achieving notable victories. However, the sheer scale and persistence of the migrations and invasions, coupled with Rome's internal weaknesses, ultimately proved too much to overcome. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire was a shadow of its former self. Its territory was fragmented into various barbarian kingdoms, and the imperial authority held little real power. The deposition of the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, in 476 CE by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer, is often seen as the symbolic end of the Western Roman Empire, although Roman culture and institutions continued to evolve and influence the subsequent kingdoms. The Western Roman Empire didn't collapse overnight, but rather withered through centuries of internal strife, economic woes, and relentless barbarian incursions. It wasn't a singular event, but a drawn-out transformation. Though 476 AD is often cited with the deposition of the last Western emperor, the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, thrived for another 1,000 years, carrying the torch of Roman legacy. The fall of the West marked not an end, but a profound shift, birthing new kingdoms and shaping the course of European history in ways the once mighty Romans could never have imagined. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was a complex and multifaceted process, influenced by a myriad of internal and external factors, from political instability and economic challenges to social changes and barbarian pressures. The decline of Rome was a slow and intricate unraveling, yet the legacy of Rome endures, its influence still felt in modern legal systems, architecture and culture. The story of Rome's fall is not just a tale of decline, but a testament to the enduring impact of one of history's greatest empires.